In September 1943, deep inside a cold Norwegian fjord, the German battleship Tirpitz sat almost motionless in the water. She was not just another warship. She was Bismarck's sister ship, and one of Hitler's last heavy pieces on the northern board. As long as Tirpitz existed, Britain had to keep ships, aircraft, and intelligence focused on the Arctic convoys to the Soviet Union. Tirpitz did not even have to sail. Her presence alone was a threat. But Hitler could not risk losing her. Bismarck was already gone. Germany could not afford to watch another super battleship get hunted down in the open ocean. So Tirpitz was hidden deep inside the Norwegian fjords. At first glance, it looked safe. The fjord had narrow entrances. Large enemy warships could not simply rush in and spread out. Steep mountains blocked sight lines and forced bombers into predictable attack paths. Anti-aircraft guns covered the shore. Patrol boats watched the surface. Anti-submarine nets guarded the water below. An enemy coming from the sky would be squeezed by the mountains. An enemy coming from the sea would be forced through narrow channels. An enemy coming from underwater would have to get through nets, patrols, and choke points first. Tirpitz was not just parked in a harbor. She was inside a natural fortress. The British saw that fortress. Then they decided not to attack it from the front. No battleship duel, no massive bomber raid. Instead, they sent in X-craft midget submarines. Compared to Tirpitz, an X-craft looked almost ridiculous. A handful of men squeezed inside a cramped steel tube with limited air, fragile machinery, and almost no room to move. It had no big guns. It was not there to fire torpedoes from a distance. Its job was much more dangerous. Get underneath Tirpitz, place heavy explosive charges near the bottom of the hull, and get out. The X-craft were first towed close to the target area by larger submarines. Then the crews took over and began the final approach into the fjord. From that moment, the mission became an underwater gamble. Too shallow, and the patrol boats might spot them. Too deep, and they could hit the seabed. Touch the anti-submarine nets, and the submarine could get trapped. If the machinery failed, the men inside might never make it back to the surface, so they moved slowly through the dark water. Inside the tiny hole, the crew watched the depth gauge and compass. Outside was freezing seawater. Above them were German patrols. Ahead of them was one of the most dangerous battleships in the world. But Tirpitz had a problem. Her huge guns could not reach down there. Her armor was not designed to stop an explosion directly under the hull. That was the point. The bottom of the ship. If the blast happened close enough, the shockwave would punch upward into the structure, damage machinery, twist systems out of alignment, and take the giant out of the fight. The goal was not to sink Tirpitz immediately. The goal was to cripple her. The X-craft pushed closer beneath the battleship. The crews began releasing the explosive charges. The placement had to be precise. Too far away, and the blast would lose force. Too close, and the attackers might not survive their own weapon. They worked inside the cramped submarine, trying to keep the craft steady in the water. Any unusual sound, any movement on the surface, any German patrol in the wrong place could end the mission. Once the charges were set, the hardest part was still ahead. They had to escape. By then, the X-craft were deep inside the German defensive zone. This was not a long-range shot followed by a clean retreat. They had placed explosives under the enemy's most valuable battleship, and now they had to crawl back out through the same underwater trap. Some of the crews did not make it out. Some were detected. Some abandoned their craft. Some were captured. But the charges were already near Tirpitz, and the Germans could not simply move the battleship out of danger. Tirpitz was too large, too slow. She had been protected by the fjord. Now she was trapped by it. Then the explosives detonated. The shockwave slammed upward from beneath the water. The sea lifted. The force drove into the bottom of the hull. Steel structures shook. Machinery was damaged. Internal systems were thrown out of order. Tirpitz did not sink on the spot. But she was no longer the same ship. The battleship Hitler could not afford to lose was forced into months of repairs. She still sat in the fjord, but her threat to the Arctic convoys had been badly reduced. Britain had not beaten her with another battleship. They had not shattered her from the air. They had sent tiny submarines to the one place the giant could not defend. Germany thought the fjord made Tirpitz safe. Britain saw something else. A target too large, too valuable, and too fixed to move quickly when danger finally arrived. In war, the most dangerous defense is not always the weakest one. Sometimes it is the one you trust too much. Because once the enemy finds the entrance, a fortress can become a trap. If you want more breakdowns of modern warfare, historic surprise attacks, and the small details that change the rules of battle, follow the channel and visit the homepage for more stories. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next battle.